So today I will talk about generalized coordinates. So to understand the concept of generalized coordinates, consider an example of simple pendulum. Let us start with the problem of simple pendulum. Simple pendulum is if a point mass is attached to a string and that string is fixed at one end, then if this is the point mass, then this is a straight string and its length will be L. L is the length of the string, and when this pendulum is set into oscillation, then what will happen? Its motion is like this. Its motion is like this, and at any time, say it will be somewhere here, x and y. So to describe its motion, what do we know? We must have some idea of x and y. What is the value of x and what is the value of y? So that means two coordinates are needed to study the motion of. But if it is a simple particle and moving in some plane, then there is no problem. X and y is okay. But now this bob or this point object is tied to a string, and that string is inextensible and its length is L. Right? This is the length, and this length will not change. And under the effect of gravity, this length should remain the same. This will not change. There is no slicking into it. So what does it mean? That means, is there any way to express this? Because what's going on when it is displaced from its mean position, then it's making an angle theta with its equilibrium position, and there is another parameter which is length, and that length of the string will remain the same for it. So what is changing? Length is replaced by r. If I call r is equal to L, and another thing is theta. So this thing will remain the same, but theta keep on changing when x and y changes. This is fixed, and this changes with the change in x and y. So that means, is there any way to express x and y in terms of polar coordinates? Yes, there is a way. We have learned that is x is equal to r cos theta, and similarly y can be written as r sin theta. So it means this is a function of r and theta, and this is function of what? R and theta. But this r is the length of the pendulum, and length of the pendulum, if it is not changing, not length but length of the string which is attached to the pendulum or the point mass, this is fixed. If it is fixed, that means this r will not change. This is constant. It means I can say that it is function of theta and it is function of theta also. X is a function of theta and y is also function of theta, because only theta is changing. Then this theta is known as generalized coordinates. Generalized coordinate to describe the motion of plane pendulum or simply pendulum. Such that length should remain the same, means length is equal to x square plus y square. This is the constraint. So otherwise, how many coordinates are required to describe its motion? 2. And this is one constraint equation, 2 minus 1. So that means only one generalized coordinate will be there. So this is a very simple idea of generalized coordinates, and this makes our life simple. Let us take another example. I talked to you in the earlier lectures that if something is supposed to move over the surface of a sphere, then only theta and phi are required to describe the motion completely, and then theta and phi are known as the generalized coordinates for the motion of some particle when it is supposed to move over the surface of a sphere. When it is supposed to move over the surface of a sphere. Let us take another very interesting example. When something is supposed to move over the surface of a cone, then what will happen? Let us take an example. Another example is the motion of simple pendulum, and another example is when something is supposed to move, or consider a particle which is constrained to move on the surface of an inverted cone. Inverted we have taken just for the sake of simplicity, right? Say this is x-axis, this is y-axis, and say it is z-axis. And something is supposed to move over the surface of a cone. The cone is like this. And say this point is, this is one point. This is either represented by, say I am assuming one point here, x, y, and z, and this can be represented as r, theta, and phi. So what is r? What is theta? So this angle is basically theta. This angle is theta, and say this is x. So corresponding to it, if I draw a perpendicular from here, then if I join this, then this angle is known as phi. This angle is phi. But for a particular cone, this theta will not change. Theta doesn't change. Particle may be here, but it's a curved part. So for that curved part, particle may be anywhere over the surface, but that theta will not change. Theta will remain the same. So if theta remains the same, then say particle will be here. So if particle will be somewhere here, let us assume that particle is supposed to be here, because actually this part is like this. So angle, either this will make this point or this, then this angle is again remains the same. Theta will not change. It seems here, but it is not changing. So for a particular cone, theta is not changing. When something is supposed to move over the surface of a cone, but when particle is supposed to move inside the cone, then theta will change. It's little bit too difficult to visualize, But if we think coolly, make your mind cool and think of cone and its outer surface, then you see that every point which is lying over the surface of a cone, that makes always an angle theta with z axis. Simple. So that means this is theta, and if I am considering this point, and if I consider this point, so for this x will be this one, let us say that. So for this r will changing. This r will change because this is r. This is the radial distance. This is changing, and this phi is also changing. Phi will also change. So that means for any point lying on the surface of cone, r and phi, these two quantities will change. R and phi will change, but theta will not change. And I know that these are basically the coordinates which I have chosen in this diagram. These all are spherical polar coordinates. One is the Cartesian, x, y, z are the Cartesian coordinates, and r, theta, phi are the spherical polar coordinates. So what is x? Let us have a look at x. X is equal to r sin theta cos phi, and y is equal to r sin theta sin phi, and z is equal to r cos theta. So it is equal to, means it is a function of r, theta and phi. This y is also function of r, theta and phi, and z is also function of r, theta and phi, because all are x, y and z, all are depending upon r, theta and phi. Now if I use this condition, what is the condition? That particle is supposed to move over the surface of a cone. So this is the constraint. So what is the constraint? Particle is supposed to move over the surface of a cone. What does it mean? That means it will make theta constant for a particular cone, not for all cones, but for a particular cone. So theta is constant. It means x is what? X is simply the function of r and phi. Y is also function of r and phi, and z is also function of r and phi. So that means my problem of three coordinates, x, y, z, can be reduced into a new problem where only r and phi is needed. So that means this r and phi, these are the generalized coordinates when body is supposed to move over the surface of a cone. So this is the impact of constraint. Because in physics, our another objective is to deal with the problem such that it must have least number of variables. Least number of variables. So variables required to describe the motion completely. If we reduce the number of coordinates required to describe its motion, that will be a wonderful job. And that job was done by the generalized coordinates. So in whole of the lecture, or whole of the series of this classical mechanics, we will always talk in terms of generalized coordinates. So let us generalize this idea of this. So suppose we are having n particles. If n particles, that means 3n number of coordinates are required. 3n coordinates are required to describe the motion completely, and say Ri vector is the position of ith particle. Position of ith particle. So if there are k constraints, then how many generalized coordinates are there? Number of generalized coordinates are what? It is 3n minus k, and let me call it as n. And as simple coordinates are represented by x1, x2 and so on x3 and up to xn. Then let us denote generalized coordinates by q1, q2, q3 and so on qn, where what is the value of n is 3n minus k. So these are what? These are the generalized coordinates, right? So position vector of the particle is represented by, say r1 is the position vector of the first particle, because we are having n particles. So it is what? It is f1, where it is a function of q1, q2, q3 and so on qn. And similarly, position vector of the second particle in our problem, it can be represented as q1, q2, q3 and so on qn, where for the ith particle, it is equal to fi q1, q2 and so q3 and so on qn. This is a way. Okay? So this is a way to express the things in terms of generalized coordinates. And if there is time dependence, if constraint is time dependent, so if time dependence is there, then Ri, it can be written as Ri as a function of q1, q2 and so on qn comma t, or simply you can represent it as fi q1, q2, qn and t. So this is a brief idea of generalized coordinates, and why these coordinates are important. That's what we have learned today. And in throughout the book or throughout the course of this classical mechanics, we will prefer to talk in terms of generalized coordinates. So that's all for this lecture.